All right, thanks everyone. It is March 15th. Nice snowy morning today. And let's get the Conservation Commission going. So I am Eric Howe, the chair of the Conservation Commission, and I think we have a few guests today, so I thought maybe we'd do a quick round of introductions.
I'm Simon Miles. I'm the conservation planner on the staff here at Williston.
I'm Chris Yeager. I'm a Williston resident. I'm involved with the Scouts. I'm on the board of the Catamount Outdoor Family Center. So I've heard that Pine Ridge Kevin was on the topic today, so I'm here to join for that conversation.
Awesome.
I'm Mia, and I go to CVU. We're just here to listen, see what the plan is.
Ella, also from CVU, taking the same field and forest class.
Wonderful. Laura Meyer, resident of Williston, on the Conservation Commission.
Reed Carr, vice chair right now. We rotate roles regularly on the commission. Born here in Williston, spent most of my life here, and yeah, been on that commission for probably too long now. Almost a decade. No, 6 years. I don't know, something like that. And we have David on the phone too. He's connecting to audio
Yeah.
though.
David's connecting to audio, so he might, I don't know whether he's going to need to come in and go out again or.
Here, could you pass that over to Reed?
All right, well, we can give David a minute to connect in and go ahead and get started.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So first order of business is public comment. Do we have any comments that folks attending the meeting would like to share today?
This is usually for comment that's something not on the agenda,
Right.
for those who aren't used to being with us.
I just have one thing, Eric, if no one else
Sure.
has anything. I just wanted to mention that in the most recent Northern Woodlands, there's a 4-part series that started on, let's see, look at the article up here. An introduction to forest carbon, and it's actually fantastic. So if you want to know all about forest carbon, sequestration and storage, it really lays it out. So I think this is
Cool.
This is something we could have given
Forest
to,
carbon.
was it Bill? That was-
Brian.
Brian,
Yeah.
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 And this is an extra copy if anybody wants it.
Oh, great. So hang on to that.
Thanks, Laura. Anyone else?
I have
All right.
one item, Eric.
Sure.
I forgot it in my living room because I was doing too much this morning, but my brother-in-law, when he was an Eagle Scout, did a project to build the upgraded dock at Lake Iroquois. And in doing some renovations at their house, we came across 3 copies of the designs that were used for it, full size. So if the town has any interest in them before they got axed, we wanted to offer that up. So I can bring them by later today, Simon, if you're interested in taking a peek, but.
Yeah, we'll take a look. I mean, I guess DPW might be interested. I don't know. Is there public? I'm not familiar with.
I don't know.
Yeah,
How it works
right.
at Lake Iroquois, but we
Yeah.
can find out if
We can always ask
those who would be in charge are
suggestions.
interested in
Yeah.
the original drawings.
Yeah, I don't, so that's for the dock where at the public boat launch?
At the boat launch, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, the Lake Iroquois Recreation District might also be interested in those.
Okay, yeah, I won't toss them then. I'll
I
keep
think it's
working to find the right person.
Ellie Dollar.
Cool, thanks. Anyone else? All right, then let's roll into the minutes from the February 15th meeting. All right, thanks, Simon. So we'll scroll through these. And let me know if you have any comments on these.
There was like one typo was all I found. Otherwise, everything looked good to me, Eric.
Thanks, Reed.
And the typo's not worth correcting or finding again.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have anything. Anyone else? All right, if not, then
Sorry.
I'll move approval of the minutes.
thank you, Reed. May I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, David. Any comments on the motion? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes from February 15th, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I'm abstaining. I wasn't here.
Okay, thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
Right, and
Terry,
that's it.
You okay with the minutes?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
good, yes. I've read them.
Too late.
She heard that, she was
Oh,
here
well.
for the motion.
The motion, right?
All right, minutes passed. Thanks, Simon. Okay, on to the Pine Ridge property discussion. Simon, you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, sure. Just. Okay. So the Puff Pine Ridge is something that's just been come up again. And we've been discussing with the town manager's office. So you probably remember there's this area, check it and see. So this area here is a parcel of land that the town now owns. So we got it in 2016, and we actually got it when the New England Theological Seminary wanted to do a development down here, and they gave it to us as part of that development. So this is about 42 acres of land. So this, just to orientate yourself, this is the southern section of Catamount. So we've got Governor Chisholm Road that sort of loops around here and then comes out by Route 2. There's the Nets Seminary. This is UVM's Talcott Woods, the golf course, and so on. So we have this piece of land here. It's pretty diverse property. It's pretty rugged. It's got about 1.5 miles worth of trails on it from when it used to be, when it was a school formerly. They used to have an adventure centre there. So it's got about 1.5 miles worth of old trails from when they used to run that. It's also got a cabin, which maybe if we zoom in, you might be able to just pick out there in the woods on the property. And then it's also got some sort of conservation interest, including things like hemlock forest, deer wintering area, and because it's sort of got a lot of streams or running through it, sort of riparian habitat. So I mentioned earlier, we've been working with the town manager's office to look at the cabin on the property. So Chris and the Scouts have expressed an interest in using it. So we've been looking at what we need to do to make that usable. There's some relatively limited sort of physical work. So I went out there with the state fire marshal to have a look at it. He's given me a list of stuff that we need to do. You know, talking with Erin in the town manager's office, we need to establish like an operational policy for use, to establish things like liability and booking and how we're going to make sure it's safe and inspected, and then also sort of establish which department is responsible for maintenance of the cabin. one of the things that this is also raised is that we also need to start thinking about, like, if we're going to open up the cabin, what are the implications of opening this up for sort of wider use? At the moment, it's sort of, I guess it's more like the Brownell Mountain approach to town-owned land rather than one of our country parks. We don't promote this as a place where people can go. It doesn't really have an access. This area by Governor Shibden Road is pretty steep, and there's only a small pull off for cars, and then sort of it's landlocked on the other side. So there's a number of things that we think we'd want to do if we were going to open this up. You know, one is establish a sort of permanent access with UVM across Talcott Woods. So get an easement or a license from them and develop a trail. Look at the sort of safety and current quality of the trails on the property to make sure they're okay. Figure out, you know, if that's got funding implications and how we're going to improve them, and also deal with how we deal with the cabin, really. So I think a management plan was developed for this back in 2019. I have a number of actions that I think fell away a little bit over the course of 2020 to 2022. Some of the things we were looking at doing, the management plan basically just sort of says at this time, not really approving any additional improvements for recreation. But the action schedule does, you know, list a number of things that we're looking at doing, like figuring out what we want to do with the cabin, whether we're going to just, you know, get rid of it, renovate it, or just leave it as it is and secure it. Start looking at the decide the type of recreational uses on the property, and then going forward, you know, figure out how we're going to get access and how we're going to, what the plan is for the existing trails. So I talked to the manager's office, and they'd like some feedback from the Conservation Commission about what how this fits in with the overall approach to conservation lands and parks in Williston. You know, what the best use for this parcel is. It's got some pretty important biodiversity and sort of wildlife value, but it's also, you know, has some recreational opportunities as well. You know, is there things like, is there demand for another country park? If so, is there demand in this area of town? How much do people think it will be used? You know, how much demand do people think there'll be for the cabin, and that sort of stuff, just so we can start figuring out how much staff time and financial resources we want to devote to that. So I know you guys looked at this a while ago, so I don't know if you want to ask any questions about, or just discuss the property in general. Just any thoughts on how it fits in?
Simon, could you speak to the easement that UVM is noted in your briefing about willingness to provide trail access?
So Melinda met with UVM, and I think UVM went out there as well and looked at potential routes. So they have basically said that they're okay in principle with us having a route through. So this is Catamount up here, and this is a map that shows the grade across the parcel and any watersheds. So you can see it's pretty steep. But I think, I wasn't there, but as I understand it, there's the feeling that we can probably pick out a path that's less challenging than some of the other paths to get through UVM Talcott Woods and into the parcel.
So I have walked that with the forester as well. I'm on the Catamount board. My property borders Talcott Woods, so my kids and I are in those woods all the time. I just found the cabin. We started to say, what is this? Can we use it? What's it for? And so there's a great point to cut the trail off of Catamount and get into those woods. And there's an existing trail most of the way to the cabin. We really just have to connect from Catamount to the existing trail network, not blaze a trail all the way to the cabin. I think it'd be about a quarter of the distance. We need a new trail. The rest is pretty existing, and that trail's it's essentially double track for most of it. It's a well-established trail. Heinrich has a lot of old single track that's dying off as well. And one other comment makes the scouts, and it was a couple of years ago, started off with like, we are willing to step up and do the maintenance on the cabin and cover the cost. It would probably be an Eagle Scout project for one of the scouts. They'd get to hike in all the materials. It'd be great, fun, classic scout activity. And rather than see this cabin over years continue to deteriorate, we'd love to get in there and take care of it and fix it up. Because how often do you have a remote cabin in the woods that you have to hike to get to? It's kind of perfect for scouting and a way to give back to the community. So we've been trying to, for a couple of years now, find a way to support making this happen. So that's why I'm here today. So anyway, my 2 cents. Sorry if I interrupted.
So wasn't there an easement over River Hill or something?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Oh, really? Oh,
No,
okay,
I think
thought
there
I
was
read
some
that.
discussion about River Hill being a good route.
About
because
asking for
it's-
one.
Yeah, it's less
Oh, it
challenging.
was never given.
No, it's
Ah.
like it's a less challenging grade.
Yeah. Talcott doesn't have any trails.
It does. It does. The trail that runs to Pine Ridge comes into Talcott quite a ways.
Mhm.
It doesn't have an official trail network for public access, but it's used for research, so I'm sure. Gary, you've been out there.
Yeah,
It's got some semblance of.
yeah, there hasn't been a lot of research in there, but it's part of the cut for Catamount, one of the replications of that goes in Talcott. So there'll be a lot soon.
Yeah.
And it's actually a good exercise for everybody to see too, so it's not like we're trying to hide it or anything.
And the access is through Catamount for the project?
No, it's through the golf course. They
Oh,
have-
okay.
They have access to the golf course.
Okay.
I think in general, if I read, I guess you might have been the only other one around when this was going on, but I think generally when our committee looked at this before in the past, it's been like, wow, we don't think the town should be getting in the business of providing overnight or whatever activity groups just because of the liability and the cost to maintain it and bring it up to speed. I guess is that kind of your recollection of that, Reed?
Yeah, and Eric may have
Oh, yeah.
memories too, but yeah, I mean, in spirit, my hope is that there is a way to have a resource like that, because I think it's really unique. It's not something that we have anywhere else in town, but it is not like anything that we currently support. So it's harder than just adding it to the list. And that's why it's back up today, because we kind of punted on it last time. We said, well, we shouldn't take it down immediately. We need to do some research. We need to figure out what to do with it. But I know that from your comments, Simon, and also from remembering last time, that there is some disrepair that needs to be addressed, and some changes that would need to be made to the structure to make it insurable and able to be occupied for scout activity. Did you have anything else, Eric, that stuck out in your mind from years past when we first acquired this?
I don't think so. My memory is not all that great anyway. So, looking through the management plan, that was a good refresher that we should take a deeper dive into this plan and other plans on a more regular basis, but I don't have anything else to add, no.
So I was reading the town plan, which we're in that transition phase of starting to work on writing the next one. But our town plan does say that we should be maintaining and expanding the country parks that we offer. So that this was the intent up through this year, was to think of it as a maintenance and expansion phase for recreation activities. So that would support what we're doing, which is at least looking through the opportunities for a parcel like this and the cabin. Do we have, Simon, any numbers on what insurance, what the town's costs? You know, that it would be great to see the Scouts take a leadership role in like the restoration and the establishment of access and things like that, but
I think the
day two costs after that, what
yeah,
does it
so the
cost
costs
to keep it available?
to meet what the fire marshal said are pretty minimal.
Okay,
It was really basic stuff that the Scouts can do with not much expenditure.
so it's insurance and administration.
It's insurance, administration, and also, you know, long-term maintenance.
Mhm.
Someone has to look up, someone in the town has to
Check up
look
on it.
after all our buildings, you know.
Mhm.
As a member of staff, I expect that someone is making sure that this building's not going to collapse while I'm working there. You know,
Yeah.
the same goes for the cabin. So
And do we have an order of magnitude at all in that, or is that something that you think?
we would need to get DPW involved
Yeah.
to go and look at it. Like anecdotally being there, it seems in pretty good condition. to
Okay.
me. I don't know, you know, how on earth they ever built that in the first place, I don't know.
Cheap student labor.
That's probably right.
Yeah.
Everybody bring a boulder.
There used to be a much more established path from Pine Ridge, and I'm sure that you could get like an ATV or something. And
So I was wondering, are we worried about, you know, I think it's great that the Boy Scouts might get involved, but with other people in town say, whoa, I didn't know that was available. I'd like to have a group to
I think-
use that. How are we gonna deal with that whole thing? I wasn't here in the beginning, so I apologize.
Yeah. One suggestion, I'm on the Catamount board as well, and the primary access to this would be from Catamount. Catamount already has systems in place for working with events for the town. I can't see many groups looking to book a cabin in the woods that doesn't have restrooms or real heat. It requires a couple mile walk in over uneven ground, like past the Scouts, maybe you'll get a couple other groups that use it. I don't think the overhead's gonna be a lot. And Catamount probably needs to sign off on access anyway, because certain times of year, the parking is closed to just protect the trails and protect the parking lot, things like that. So they're gonna be front and center in this either way.
Yeah, I guess I just want to, if it did happen, I'd want to see a pretty well thought out system for, like, what would you do if some other group approached you and said, I'd like to use it this weekend? I mean,
So the policy would obviously, it wouldn't be specific to the Scouts, it'd be anyone can use it. You know, educational, outdoor educational purposes.
we wouldn't want to just say anyone, because then there'll be parties up in
Well,
there.
you can use it, yeah, you can
Yeah.
use it
With
for
permission, you have to apply
educational
for
type
permission.
events.
And it's
like
gonna be
Scouts
for
would do.
overnight uses? Is that what people are anticipating?
Ideally, it's got a small second level where like a bunch of sleeping bags would go ideally, but also, I mean, it's not that long a hike. You could go in for single day activities as well.
Yeah, we used to take our kids to the hut at Sleepy Hollow. There's nothing more fun than going in and sleeping overnight,
It's great.
especially in the winter, though. It sounds like people want to remove is the wood stove a danger, or?
It would, if it were to allow fire, we'd have to bring in a new wood stove.
A new
so
wood
that
stove,
I can get,
okay.
You know, the fire department to sign off, which we would be interested to work with them on that. It's obviously a lot more enjoyable if you can do that, just like I mean, that's a great example. That's kind of what we're thinking of it as.
Yeah, and I would think that, you know, Governor Chittenden Road is part of the Cross Vermont Trail. I know the Vermont Huts Association is you know, they're really into building connecting huts for all sorts of. So they might be willing to take it over too, as far as, I don't know, it's just an idea.
Administration. sort of
Yeah.
That's actually that's a really interesting idea, Laura, there, because they also have like done quite a bit of like refurbishing of huts that were like, I don't know, kind of in similar shape to that cabin, and really like turned them around and then brought them into part of that system. And they are usable by families, like you were saying. Like we've skied into a couple and we have like really tiny kids still. I don't know how that relationship would work, but I feel like it's worth noting and exploring.
Yeah, and maybe they could even work with the scouts as, the scouts could have, they could oversee it. or
Yeah, exactly.
So you're thinking that this wouldn't be restricted to official groups, that it would just be open to general public? Or could there be a kind of a restriction where it would have to be like an organized group to use it?
I think a group, I'm imagining that a group would be defined as any set of people who want to reserve it and take responsibility for what takes place in it. I mean, if a group of families say we want to take our kids out there and have a sleepover, I don't see a reason why that shouldn't be permitted if the scouts can go and do an activity overnight or.
So it would have to be.
But somebody has to be
There's a huge
responsible.
difference between.
But somebody has to be responsible.
Scouts is an organized, well-respected, they have skin in the game compared to, Joe Blow in your neighborhood that say, hey, let's have a neighborhood party out there or something. Then there's, who's responsible, whereas the scouts, it's gonna be, okay, you guys are cut off, we're stopping it because of this issues.
And
It's
we
easier,
carry our
much,
insurance as well.
sure,
It's- we've got
that's a
coverage.
totally different thing than
Yeah,
organized
that's true.
nonprofit groups that would use it.
And I am worried
I
about-
caution,
I
I'm a little bit cautious.
I am worried about like vandalism, issues and how to
Exactly.
secure it when it's not in use.
Especially if you have a wood stove in there, it's easy for people to break in and camp out there for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, and if you use things like combo locks, you have to change the combo periodically, potentially, and so the logistics are the thing that I'm worried about. The benefits, I think, are pretty clear to me personally, that if it were able to be offered, if you had a system to administer it, I think the benefits are there.
I know that they just up at Bolton, they redid that. Maybe it was the Green Mountain Club redid the Bolton Lodge where people, just individuals could.
It's Vermont Hut. It's part of Vermont Huts. I put it in the link to Simon, but I guess like to Reed's point, like there's a lot of logistics, but they're like figure outable, right? And the benefits are clear, so.
That's a good one.
That's right.
Like they're
Vermont,
There's-
they have, yeah.
solvable problems, I guess. So yeah, I think there are options. Maybe, sorry, Ellie has a shirt stuck on her head. There's options to explore.
Do they support managing reservations for groups? Like, do they own all the cabins themselves, or could we actually use them? to
Yeah, they have
handle-
reservations.
They don't own all of them and they do support the reservations themselves.
Yeah, so
And
that-
it could, I think it's worth it. That's what I mean. I think Laura's idea is worth exploring. I have no idea what the, what those relationships look like, but I know that like we've stayed on one that's on Forest Service land. I know there's one that's like privately owned. There's the one that's at Bolton. They have put a lot of money into many of them, like the Chittenden Brook Hut is technically on Green Mountain National Forest, and I think that was maybe their first one. They put a lot of money into it. So like to Gary's point of like skin in the game, they're managing all of the reservation systems. They do like change the codes in between trips or visits. They give you like cleaning instructions, but then they come and like check everything afterwards. That was like really a lot more diligent, or like there was a higher level of that during COVID. I think it's like maybe a little reduced now. I think the downside that I see is that like it costs more. Like it's not just like you're reserving it for free, because all of that stuff takes money and time, but
potentially the scouts could pay for it with in-kind work,
Right.
yeah, maybe. I think it's worth exploring.
There could be like a bartering system where, you can either reserve it for money, or you can come to an agreement on how to, if you're interested in it long-term, then you can participate in maintenance or even changing the codes,
Yeah.
adopting
Yeah.
the trail and maintaining the trail. There are different ways that maybe those costs could be made up.
So a couple of things. I was just using Bolton Lodge as an example. I was up there a few years ago. and they really redid the whole place, and they built a whole building for the firewood. And then they built a whole really nice outhouse, which there's nothing there right now, right? It's just,
No, there's no
yeah, so
bathroom
that would
facility.
be something that is really important. And who's gonna maintain that? Who's gonna clean those outhouses out periodically when they need to be done and keep them, you know, toilet paper and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I was impressed with the Bolton Lodge. It was really well set up and lots of instructions and, you know, very clear, and they have a wood stove in there, and they have whatever rules and regulations and insurance.
So Simon, what are the next steps in this?
So a couple of things. Firstly, like, what do people think about the property in general? If we're going to promote this as a cabin, then my view is we're de facto promoting this as a park as well. People to go to if they just want to go for a hike or whatever. You know, it is at the end of the trail, but there probably will be people who will take an interest. So what do people think about having more people out there?
Because of the slopes, I would prefer to see this as one trail that leads to a cabin, and then not a formal trail system from there. If the people visiting the cabin want to use informal trails to explore the area, to me, that seems like it's going to be relatively low impact. But if you start creating a trail system like a loop, then people tend to want to go and walk the loop often, and then it really, to me, kind of ramps up usage. The value for this property compared to other properties is the fact there's a cabin there, not that it's good terrain for a trail network.
I think you have to consider the fact that its proximity to Catamount means that it would only be a matter of time before Fellowship of the Wheel would want to come in and start building some trail networks, and then all of a sudden you've got a overnight mountain bike enthusiast cabin to rent and explore the park with, Catamount, you know, forest with. I think that is certainly appealing. I don't know if this structure, I clicked on a couple of these links. These are awesome huts, Kim, thanks for sharing them. Very expensive. Not sure if the kind of creepy cabin in the woods meets the criteria that these cabins appear to have, but I think we can't deny that fact, right? Is that if you all of a sudden open that parcel, open the cabin, all of a sudden it's an overnight mountain biking destination for sure. I mean, this cabin that I randomly just picked on is advertising mountain bike trails that are like a 10-minute drive. Well, here you could literally bike pack in, stay for the whole weekend exploring the trails.
But that's cool.
It's cool. We can't just, all I'm saying is like, let's just be aware of that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a cool, but it's a choice.
I mean, I think initially we should not allow bikes in. I'm pretty clear on.
I agree with Gary for the reasons that Reed said, like, it's not, it's like really, really steep. Not that it wouldn't, I'm sure that people could build like good trail in there, but it just, I don't know.
So if you read the report that they wrote, the kids, the NR 206 group, it was a lot of information in there. And really what I got out of it was that it was a wildlife corridor. It was a very important piece of land for wildlife, that the terrain was difficult, that there was significant, different unique plants and seeps and things like that. And it just really doesn't seem that it would support mountain bikes for sure, but even a lot of foot traffic, you know, and that is, I'm sure, you know, it just if you just look at it, the map, it just shows that it is a corridor for wildlife.
So I do also mountain bike, and I'm on the board of Catamount, so you could totally cut good biking trails in there. It's just work with modern trail building techniques. That is I think it's David's point, that is something we should be aware of. Other people will be like, well, can't we build a trail to the cabin, but also all the way through the property so that we can have a trail that connects Catamount to other trail networks around? Not an unknowable goal. The trail that exists to the cabin right now would not be a fun biking. Like, you would want to bike it. Like, we keep most of the existing trail we can. It's not going to attract bike traffic because the stuff at Catamount is way better than that nasty trail.
I
Yeah,
think,
that's
you know,
kind of why I said
Yeah.
initially, I don't think we should allow biking, because we've seen in the past, and I don't know what's going on nowadays in in that culture, but in the past, they've built trails wherever they want without asking, you know, and we end up with a mess. So especially, I think, you know, I think we want to take this one step at a time, and, you know, if we do make it fly for hiking in for scouts initially and see what happens after that.
but I think that does, I mean, it might address being able to put trails in, but doesn't address the disturbance of the wildlife,
Correct.
which is, once
One
you
of the
get,
reasons we didn't take action before,
Right.
and left this in this limbo.
because Williston is just losing, you know, you know, where there's areas where wildlife can, it just can't be disturbed. So that's really, I think, something to think about.
So Eric, where I am is I'd like to see the next few answers figured out in terms of exploring whether this Vermont Huts, whether there's either advice and or the ability to partner on management, and also figuring out more some of the costs so that we can decide whether those costs are tenable long-term. Having the scouts involved would be great, but we can't guarantee it. It reminds me of like the farm, the horse farm. It's like, you know, okay, probably for the next few years, there'll be a partnership, but you can't guarantee that 6 years from now, the scouts are going to want to do all the work. So we have to be prepared to take on the costs if and when they come.
I think maybe contact the Green Mountain Club too, because they obviously have trails along the long trail. I mean, huts along the long trail.
So they have to manage.
And just to find out, you know, what do they go through? What do they suggest? I bet they'd be willing to meet.
A few years ago, when this conversation, there was like an earlier version of it. And part of it involved Talcott, and I apologize if y'all talked about Talcott before I signed on, but it was with the previous executive director of Catamount, Kim Stinson, and Ralph Tersini, who has since left UVM. And so I don't know if that whole thread of emails is lost or still exists, but with this, I guess the point I'm getting to is would Talcott be implicated in this? Like, would people need to walk through the research forest and is it just Wilkie?
They're open to an easement, and that would be the access recommended at this time, would be from Catamount through Talcott into Pine Ridge.
Got it. Thanks.
So I guess what I'm hearing is we need to talk more about what we want to use the property for access, not to get there, but for trail, what kind of trail system do we want to have there? And then for the cabin needs to be rehabilitated, right? So we need to figure out how and who is going to do that, if we want to keep the cabin. And then we would need to develop some sort of a reservation process, sign up form with some sort of liability waiver, rental fee, or whatever. And you know, the hut association, I think that's a great idea. I think it might be a bit of a reach, but why not? we can try and connect with them and see what they think. It would take it out of our control.
If not help.
So
Yeah.
They may attract a lot more people than we want, potentially, right?
And then there's that.
It's another
Oh,
big
that's true.
Vermont
It's gonna be up on their
resource.
website.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, Gary, I envision this working best if the trail is passable, but not encouraging things like mountain biking. The cabin is usable and awesome, but not glamping.
Right.
And so on. Like, it needs to be like, it would have to be like this sweet spot where it's just good enough that it serves all the purposes we need, but not so nice that all of a sudden everybody in the world wants to go there.
Yeah, we don't want the scouts glamping. They should be
They
uncomfortable.
should be on cold, hard floors.
I'm just wondering if there should even be a calmer first step, would be to say initially this is gonna be dedicated to education or something like that, and that brings in a limited number of groups, organized education groups.
There has to be an education group that
Yeah.
reserves it or something.
And then, you know, we're not saying that's gonna happen forever, but let's try that for the first year or two and see how it goes, and then learn from that, and then make the next step beyond that.
Interesting.
So do you think this is too big of a project for a Eagle Scout?
No, I've been to the cabin many times. I've read the report. I've checked it out, what needs to be done myself, because it wasn't locked too well for a while or at all. So I've been in the building multiple times. I wouldn't be here saying the scouts could do it. But we're confident they could do it. So
And
it's pretty normal stuff. Yeah, we would raise money. I mean, we get a big surprise and some fire departments know, yeah, I gotta do all this other stuff too, then we can revisit. But based on everything I know right now, it's under 10 grand in material costs. I've got cheap child labor, all I could want, so. It'd honestly be a fun project for them, and I'd like to see them hauling like boards and things like
Yeah.
a couple miles through the woods and figuring out how to do that.
Who else do we think might be interested in using this hut other than the Scouts for educational purposes?
I think Catamount itself would potentially use that in some of their.
A
their
destination
programming.
for a program.
Yeah,
But minus the bikes, basically.
yeah, no, the bikes, they have plenty of non-biking programs.
Program.
Yeah, like, birding or like whatever camps.
That's true.
Master naturalists.
Master naturalists might
Yeah,
want to
that's right.
use it for their programming.
Could it be skied into in the winter?
It depends on how you build that trail, determine how hard or easy it is to ski into that. I think you want to consider, if you're not going to allow biking, do you want to allow skiing? Skiing's kind of in the middle, or is it just foot traffic? Is it just snowshoes? Because the way Catamount is, you've got your bigger trails for skiing and your smaller trails for fat biking and snowshoeing. And this to me seems like a hiking and snowshoeing kind of trail.
I agree with that, and I don't imagine this is gonna be easy to get through Public Works. I'm just throwing that out there, you guys, so don't get your hopes up.
Are you volunteering to work on it?
No, I'm just saying, I could see there's complications for the whole town,
Yeah.
but they're often the ones that point them out. Those guys have dealt with maintaining these type of things and issues related to it, so. That should be a step we go to soon, just so we don't waste a lot of time on other issues.
So there was no, Pine Ridge didn't give, not Pine Ridge, Next didn't give any easement for like emergency access to
Not
the,
from their property, no.
no, so that's just off the board.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, I mean, that's a safety issue too. I
Right.
guess you're right.
So
If somebody's
fire-
injured, it may take a while to
Injured,
get out of
fire.
that, yeah.
Mhm.
Did the fire department, Simon, comment on the emergency response aspect?
We would definitely have to get their response. I know that like they're always interested in how accessible places are. If we're going to encourage people to go to a place that has no road access and is a 3/4 mile walk, they're gonna have something to say about that.
Yeah.
They're also, I don't know whether they're gonna have something to say about,
They're gonna say this is how long it would take us to respond.
Yeah.
yeah.
You decide whether you want to do that. Yeah.
Especially with a wood burning stove, they would want to have access if there were a fire. How would they get a truck in there?
And sometimes it's just a case of they want to know so that, if there's something happening out there, they're not running on a staff that can, respond to 2 incidents. They've got a staff who can respond to 3 incidents. Those are the sort of things they're interested in.
And what goes in the
All right.
liability waiver.
I just
So,
wanna,
okay.
my last suggestion is that I think also I realized that the butternut cabin at Sleepy Hollow is part of the Vermont Huts Association now, and I wonder if it's worth talking to the folks at Sleepy Hollow and saying like, hey, like you used to manage this and maintain it and do all the reservations for it, but it looks like it's moved over to this organization. How did that work? And I also, as I'm talking, I'm realizing like I will definitely be there this week. So if I see Eli, I will, which I'm sure I will, because he's always there on the piston bully. I think maybe like asking a couple similar organizations that work with Vermont Huts Association, how it works would be good perspective.
All right, thanks, Kim. So I guess what I'm hearing for next steps would be to Gary's point a few minutes ago. I think probably a good next step would be to talk to Bruce and find out what flags he raises and if there's any hurdles there that can't be hurdled. Um, And then, I see a few, if assuming we can get through that conversation, then the next, I see a few plans in the works, I guess, a usage plan and a rehabilitation plan for the cabin, which would include, as Kim just suggested, talking to Sleepy Hollow or Vermont Association or other groups. And then a third plan would be to develop a plan for the trail system. Right.
And maybe a fourth might be like a safety plan. Eventually, before it's used, scouts or somebody, but here's what we do if this happens and that.
Yeah, that could be part of the usage plan.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So for that conversation with Bruce, Simon, is that something that you and maybe Chris could do?
I'll speak to Bruce for that.
Okay.
Don't know how you do it, Eric, but we're perfectly on time.
Luck. It's all luck. All right. Okay, so Simon, you can take that first step with, and then report back to us, I guess, on the outcome of that conversation.
Yeah.
Great. All right,
Thanks
thank you.
for coming and chatting about it.
Thanks for
you,
listening,
Chris.
and I'm happy to help with any of this. I've been poking at it for a couple of years, so wherever you need a concerned citizen to do legwork, let me know.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you.
thanks, Chris. Okay, green update planning. Back to you, Simon.
So this is obviously May 6th is Green Up Day. I think we talked last time about various organisations having activities this year that they want to do. We're on for 4 hours. I think went well last year, but there was some discussion rather than people sort of having a table and then everyone just sort of circulating. It'd be good if we could have activities or particular things that interested parties want to promote. I know that we talked about doing No Mo May and Raise the Blade, promoting that. I think Deb from Sustainable Williston said she's going to come along. So she should be here soon and talk about what she was thinking. And I think I got the impression everyone was okay with that as what the Conservation Commission is going to do this year. So it's just any thoughts about developing that further and talking to Deb about what she envisages for the event as well.
Did I saw the email string with Deb. Are we at the stage of we have some potential sign designs or sources, but we were trying to figure out how much it might cost to.
Yeah, so the one of the things we talked about was like the Conservation Commission, the Sustainable Williston could have like a batch of No Mo May signs that we're able to hand out at Green Up Day so that people can put them out if they're not mowing their yard to tell neighbours about why it's a good thing rather than them just being lazy.
But if you're lazy, you can also put a sign out.
Yes.
That's good too.
Lazy, and that's good.
Jump on the.
So I think actually Deb did send a example that maybe I can.
Don't they have signs already made?
There-
Don't
Yeah,
they
there are
provide-
some, and Eric went off video. Eric, didn't you say that, didn't you say at one of the meetings that they'll actually give signs to folks if they request them or something? But were you the one who mentioned that?
So not for green up, sorry, well, not for green update, but not for No Mo May.
Was it
we
Raise
ha-
the Blade?
the Lake Champlain Basin program will give out signs for Raise the Blade, which is a different, similar but different campaign
Understood.
than No Mo May.
And I think Simon, we were talking about advertising both initiatives as part of the tabling, so folks could choose their what they would be interested in. Oh, maybe this year I'll try raising the blade on my mower a little bit to help lawn health and also help with our ecology, and then also well, maybe I also want to do no mow May, or maybe I want to do the other way around.
Yeah, they don't have to be one or the other. They could certainly be, both programs could be.
One or the other, or both, or neither, yeah. Hey, Deb.
Here we are. So this was, I think this was an example of the sort of sign that we could do on the left here, or the right rather. Deb sent in. So we could look at doing something similar. See if there's any more detailed information we want to provide.
So the town would be buying those?
Yeah, so we've got some money in our conservation budget left over. I got I think Deb got a quote, but I got one as well from Minuteman Press. And I think they said, you know, I think what I got was 100 signs at 12 by 18 would range from $600 to $748. So depending on how many we were thinking, that could be feasible for something for the Conservation Commission to spend their money on, given the conservation benefits. And hopefully the majority of them would be reused for several years by residents. And we could, you know, keep them there. It would give a further reason for people to come down to Green Up Day.
Come down and get your no mow.
Yeah,
Sign.
talk about it and just, you know, understand a bit more about it, which is always easier than doing your own research.
I wondered, can we have a, what do they call it, QR code thing on there that would link to more information? So
Yeah.
people just walking by can say, oh, this is cool. You know,
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, I see you nodding, Deb. Yeah, that could be kind of cool for especially in neighborhoods where a lot of people are doing their loops. They
This
can
is all about, you know.
scan it and see what it's about.
Eric, are there QR codes on the Raise the Blade ones? I feel like there might be.
I don't know, I saw one of those just the other day. I can't remember.
Yeah, they're on the Williston bike path. I'm like trying to picture it in my head. Either way, it's a great idea, Gary.
I think there isn't. I think there's just some some bullet points in the corner that say like raise to this level, it improves this, it reduces this, you know, some of the benefits are listed.
I mean, QR codes are pretty easy to do.
Yeah. But that might be a really like a next level thing to put on it instead of just the name of the program
or something.
Yeah.
If I can jump in for a second, sorry, I was late. There is somebody on Sustainable Williston who said that she could try to design a sign for No Mow May, and then we can personalize it just for Williston and put the QR code. And we would just need to know like where would that lead to? Would it go to like which website? And then the second thing I wanted to mention is that Kevin Thorley, who is also on the Energy Committee and Sustainable Williston, wants to do an article for the Observer. So we can tie in all these things in April. So
thanks for bringing that up, Deb. Yeah, so the Energy Committee's been writing in the green edition of the Observer each month. A member of their commission has been doing that. And Kevin is planning to write about No Mow May. Was it No Mow May, Deb? I can't remember which topic. No Mow, yeah, so No Mow May for the April edition. So folks would have a little bit more information available just through the Observer. And Marcy Cass, it was Marcy that volunteered to do design, Deb.
Yeah.
Marcy Cass is a very talented artist and designer, and she's done a lot of work on signs and displays and interactive things for Sustainable Williston, and she would be great if we think it would be cool to have a custom sign. She could do that pretty quickly and easily with her skill set. And then we could slap a QR code on there.
Isn't there a national organization that we could that's like something about pollinator cities or something that started this that we could link the QR code to? I'm forgetting the name of it.
Yeah, there are like several nationwide efforts. And we could just use like their sign and their design as well.
Vermont Department of Agriculture has a website on it. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
any good.
I think we'd want to pick a fairly stable website so that people don't discontinue the link
Yes.
for the following year. So if the USDA has one, that'd be great, or if there's a national body that has one, that'd also be good. I think if we use, what I'd quite like to do is if people, like if Marcy's able to design something, also get, you know, a reference to the Sustainable Williston and the Williston Conservation Commission on there, as well would be good, so that people know who's developed these signs.
Yeah, that's good.
Make it more local orientated.
Does the Williston Conservation Committee have a website that, like if we put something about No May somewhere on a Williston website, we could link to that so it's more local? So we could put maybe a national article on a local website so that it, I don't know.
We do. I always say, like, our website, the town website, is a good history lesson for people who want to know what the internet was like in 2010. And, like, I know that
That was so diplomatic and yet so accurate.
Part of history, huh?
yeah.
If you want to be part of history, you want to be on the Williston website.
So that's something we can definitely, you know, creating a web page for this is no problem whatsoever. We can definitely do that. I think it's, I mean, maybe we'll take a look at what these, I know Kim just put some things in the chat, so let me just look at those.
Plantlife.org apparently is a UK organization that really kind of brought No May to the forefront. So they have a pretty extensive article here on it. They might be a fairly stable thing if they were. Yeah, Bee City was also the top result that came up for me.
Yeah.
And Bee City USA is, so those two that I sent are connected. The Xerxes Society is the like organization behind Bee City USA, and it's like the invertebrate scholarly people.
They've been around forever.
Yeah.
The entomologists.
That's the, yes, thank you. The invertebrate scholarly people. There's a better word. Reed's got it.
It's a college professor term.
Yeah. Kim's good at those.
My quick search got a UVM Sea Grant Lake Champlain website, and that looks like it has a lot of nice sub articles and
Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah.
Can you put it in the chat for Simon so he doesn't have to go on that?
And we want to do both No May and Raise the Blade.
I think we should.
Yeah.
I think different people will be interested in them, and I think having them side by side, I think is like a really cool conversation with people to talk about. Like, it's about when you mow. It's also about what height you mow at. All these
Right,
different
yeah, they're
things.
different. They're like complementary strategies. It's not like you can do this one or this one. You do them both and they do different things.
Did the Public Works come on board with the No May and
Parks and
Raise
Rec
the
is
Blade.
using it for like in the community parks, but I don't know about Public Works.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to learn about Public Works. I mean, they should be doing the 3 inches or longer too. I mean, I'm sure there's some management conflicts with that they can't get to places often enough or something, but it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
fuel savings too.
Fuel savings, work hour savings.
Sure, yeah.
Staff
Well,
savings.
at one point in time for Raise the Blade, I believe Parks and Rec had signed on to that program, which meant they mowed all the paths that were not soccer fields and baseball fields, because they
They were
sort of
still
have
doing
an
it last
exemption.
year.
Yeah,
So there are two
but that did
separate.
not extend to Public Works though.
Mowing, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
they are.
yeah, so Parks and Rec, who does the community parks, was doing it the last few years, but I don't have any knowledge of whether Public Works is doing it.
I mean, if you
Also-
cut the soccer fields to 3 inches, that'll give the kids a better workout and fewer lost balls. And
That's right.
All has helped them. Human
Tire the kids out more. That's the ultimate goal.
exactly.
Okay, so
As far as budget is concerned, I would support creating a moderate number of signs. I feel like we can learn from this. If we create 100 signs and they disappear and we have people asking for them, we could even put in a second order and say, you know, we'll take down your information and, you know, let you know when the town orders more signs, or, you know, here's our design and you can get it printed yourself. But I think we shouldn't order 300 signs and give out 50. Like, we should order something that we think is pretty reasonable. If we have a few left over, that's fine, but we can always do more next year.
I guess for No Mo May, my one, it's not really a concern, but my one thought on it is it's unfortunate that, I mean, it's great that this is kind of, this initiative has grown sort of organically in communities around all over the country, but what the consequences is that there's no one group leading it, and the real consequence is there's not a single brand for it. So like for Raise the Blade, we use that same brand across the entire Lake Champlain Basin and maybe beyond. So people see the sign, they know what it is, just like any other branding campaign. And with No Mo May, I haven't seen that yet. And so if there is a sign out there that seems like more people are using, then I would encourage you just to use that design so that there's something consistent. Maybe beyond just the Williston community.
Okay, we could use, there are typical designs that come up when you put that into a search. So we could use that same design so it's familiar. And then just tweak it to include a QR code and something that says Williston, if you guys think that's better.
Can you get QR codes as a sticker? Just
Oh.
on a roll and just put the stickers on the,
That's an interesting idea.
yeah. And
If we're paying to have it printed, it probably doesn't cost any more to add onto the image our QR code, but
okay.
the stickers are, if there's like a stock one that we could get through some supplier, we could always put a sticker on it. I hear what you're saying, Eric, about like, it would be great to have consistency, but I also see it as an opportunity that if there's not consistency, we should take advantage of that to say, well, let's create something that's Williston specific, that creates pride in, hey, Williston is doing this and I'm doing it with my neighbors, or I'm doing it with my other residents. So I think it could be a positive either way, whether it's consistent with what people see in other towns or unique to Williston.
Maybe Marcy can design something that's unique, but has some of the same design elements as what other towns have been using.
Yeah, like
But-
the pollinator images or something.
Yeah, could be. I was looking at notes from last meeting. We talked about asking the fire station and maybe other more visible spots if they would join the No Mo May, maybe if they just used one little section that they don't mow and they had a sign. Also, we talked about that on the town green, but I don't know who can approach them. And if you guys have contacts there, or
The library, I think, has through their budget, don't they have a service that they pay to do lawn mowing?
I don't know. would
I
assume
assumed that was Public Works that did that.
That was Public
but-
Works,
Yeah.
maybe. So I don't know who should take the lead on that.
Yeah.
Is that something, Deb, that you would have bandwidth to do some outreach if we could get you the right contacts?
Yeah, I can do that. Unless someone in your group knew them better, but I'm happy to do it if you think that's just as effective.
I think it's a great idea. I think personally, I think the town should just adopt the high mowing and all that stuff, but I don't think it's gonna be quite that simple with Public Works. So I think it's a great idea, Deb, to at least have some demonstration areas with signs showing people, here's the difference, here's what we're doing here, pick a half an acre in each of a couple places or something. And it also will potentially provide information to the town so they can say, well, that wasn't so hard, let's just adopt that.
Mhm.
It's like a trial.
Yeah.
So where else do you think besides like the firehouse and the library green?
I think the library green is probably one of the most important places because that's where you get a lot of traffic in town, and traffic is slow. There's foot traffic there. And the fire department is good, but people are whizzing by there and maybe
Yeah.
not necessarily noticing the lawn.
Yeah, is there even I'm like, I drive past it all the time and not super fast. 'Cause I have to like turn to go into the school or the road to go to to Allenbrook, and I can't even picture the lawn. Is there like?
There's quite a bit, I think. And if it was just like on the corner, they could just do a patch. I think that's.
I think their display sign with the clever wording.
I agree.
Like no mow May is for the bees or something like that would be pretty cool way to start the month.
So I also think having something behind Williston Central School where all the fields are, in between fields or something like that, because we've all been there when there's literally hundreds of people back there playing sports of some sort. So that'd be a high visibility area.
So that would be Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
So Parks and Rec, Fire Department, Library / Public Works, asking for demonstration areas that are high visibility, where signs could be put up and a trial of doing no mow May could be done this year.
I can try to reach out to Public Works and Parks and Rec. Does somebody want to try the firehouse?
And wouldn't that be Public Works? The fire department?
I don't know.
I think they
assume so,
mow
yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I think they have a shed with a mower and
Oh, do they?
I think the staff goes out and does their own. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to put too much science into this, but it'd be neat if we had 3 locations and all of a sudden you can get some data out of this too.
That's
You have
true.
duplicates of the same study in 3 locations.
I will,
It'd be interesting to make a little, I don't know, student project out of it at the very least.
Deb, I'll ask Chapin if Four Winds wants to do a pollinator count or something with the kids to go out and see what pollinators they can find, take pictures of them. It might
Great.
not be super scientific with kindergarten through fourth graders, but they'll learn something and we can get some photos and some information to put in an Observer article.
Yeah, that's great. It's going to be, yeah. Good.
Kind of related to Gary's point and hearkening to the QR code. I have a graduate student that has been using QR codes with survey research. And one thing so he just has like a QR code on paper surveys that he's mailing out to people and so instead of like having to mail the surveys back, people can just do it online, but the benefit of doing it that way is that we're not like posting a link to a common place. So we know exactly how many people receive the survey and it's giving people an easier option. And my like lesson from this to share with you, Simon, is that if we do a QR code, I think it's worth it to like to not do the free one and to like pay a little bit of money because some of the free ones like cap the number of responses that you can have. And then 2, if you pay for it, you get some analytics on like how many people clicked it versus how many people completed it. And it's just kind of like useful to see like what the reach of your outreach is.
And
just
yeah,
related.
good idea. I've also seen some towns have a registration for signing up to participate in Elmo May. So it could be a way to, if people want to get a sign or sign up for next year or stay in touch for information, it could be a way to gather if we wanted to go that route too.
All right, so I guess, is there anybody who would like to reach out to the fire department? I'm
I can do
I'm
that.
a little out of bandwidth right now, but sorry, who was that? Was that Simon?
That was me,
Simon.
yeah, Simon.
Awesome, thanks, Simon. Okay, and then, so Deb, you'll reach out to, or Simon, can you connect Deb to Bruce and to
Yeah, sure.
Todd? Great, thank you. And then, okay, and then I guess the other thing is Deb, you'll work with your crew on designing a sign and article for the Observer. Do they have a time frame for that article? I assume it'd be the April Observer green issue, whatever that is, but
Yeah, I don't remember what date that is, but I will work with Kevin on that.
okay.
And then for handing out signs, I can be available on, I think we talked about Green Up Day, having a table.
Yep.
And I can help with that.
And I know I've got Green Up Day on my calendar, but when is it? It's second weekend of May,
May the 6th.
May 6th. Yep, first week of May. Got it. Okay. All right, awesome. Anything else on that one? All right, great. Thanks for joining,
you.
Deb. Thanks for
Yeah, thank
all that
you.
work.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
All right, that brings us to other business. Simon, back to you. I see you've got a few things in the other business category today.
So we just something everyone probably has heard that they're doing the scoping study for the library and community centre, potential new building or extension of the library. So they are starting doing their outreach, which I think they debuted at the town meeting. And they're looking for feedback on the what people would like to see in the library and what people would like to see in the community centre. They've established a steering committee who've been doing work and starting looking at space needs for those uses. And I think they are looking just for people to respond. So I think you can set up your own interview with them if you want to do that. And I think they're also planning on doing an event with the various boards to ask them for their feedback. So they might be arranging that in the near future. I looked on their website and it looks like they are doing an engagement event tomorrow at the library between 2 and 6. If anyone wants to go down there and look at that and talk to them about what uses you'd like to see in these facilities.
Okay. Great, thank you. That's good to know. I don't know where I've been, but I don't recall hearing about that. So great. Thanks, Simon.
Oh, yeah, so if you are interested in participating, please do. We're also looking at getting Doctor Trail going again. So I think this was done in 2019 and the management fell away a little bit on it. But I just reached out to various people who were down as managing it previously to see if they're still interested, or find out if they are doing it. And secondly, find out if they're still interested in continuing. So I've got most of the trails covered. So I think Terry's doing one at Mud Pond, and we've got most of the other ones covered. I think you were going to speak to someone about Mud Pond West section, and there's also no one currently on the Allenbrook Nature Trail. But other than that, we have volunteers for that. And I think the idea was to try and get the basic maintenance done. And so that it frees up Anne to do, and our trail steward, we have a trail steward who comes and walks all our trails and does all the basic maintenance every year to keep them in good order during the summer. So to help her out and take some of the load off her, but also establish like a body of people who might want to come in and do some more basic trail maintenance. So I've looked at that, and I've I think maybe some of the feedback I think was that there was a lot of different forms on the website for Adopt a Trail. So trying to make it less formal, make the requirements less onerous, so you've got a bit more flexibility about how you go about doing it. And also make the reporting requirements, well, firstly, not requirements, and secondly, just
reporting suggestions.
if you just send me an email, just let me know what you've done.
I can jot it down and we're good.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to acquire volunteers to do anything. I've limited authority over them.
You just need to assert yourself, Simon.
So were there repeat people, or were these all new?
Yeah, there were. So there's yourself, there's the Rotary, and who are doing the Schmoker Trail. There was the Scouts who were doing Suckerbrook. They're going to keep doing Suckerbrook. There was a couple of individuals who I think were down for one trail, but they switched on to doing Five Tree Hill. And that was it. And I think the people who were doing the Allenbrook Nature Trail haven't responded to me, so I'm assuming they're not interested anymore.
Oh, that reminds me, the Suckerbuck sign had been knocked down. Did that get fixed?
No, because I think all the posts need replacing.
Yeah.
It looks like it's all completely rotted out.
That's the big one.
The big one along the road, yeah, is completely on the ground.
Wow, so you really can't figure out. where
You
it
can't
is.
find the entrance anyway, even with the
Anyway,
sign.
I know, it's-
You need like a big arrow across the road that says turn here.
So we need to pull those posts out and replace
Okay.
them, I think, because they're just disintegrating.
Is that something Public Works does?
Well, Anne's coming back in, I think, all being well, in sort of early to mid-April, depending on the weather. So I was going to see if we could do it.
Also, the Scouts, since they're the Adopt the Trail, they may be interested in helping with
Might be a
installing
good,
the revised sign.
right, it might be a good idea to move it out, because like you said, I always go by it, because it's so hard, it just all of a sudden comes up, because
It's,
you can't see.
it
the
is
sign.
parallel to the road, and I
Right,
I have wondered whether turning it perpendicular to the road would make it so people could see where the entrance was.
Right.
Just something to think about while it's already on the ground.
Yeah.
Right. So we just need to figure out where the state right of way is.
It would need to be two-sided if it was
Yeah.
perpendicular
Oh,
to the
it's only
road, so
one.
just keep that in mind.
Hey, everyone, I have to drop off a little early. Thanks.
All right,
See you next
thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
So Simon, for recruiting, I mean, unless you have specific people in mind for the other remaining trails that need adopters.
So Terry's got a line on the people for the Mud Pond
Okay.
West. So I'll wait and see whether anyone comes forward from that. And then I was just gonna maybe see if anyone, ask around, see if anyone's interested in doing the Allenbrook Nature Trail.
What about Green Up Day? We could have at least information about the Adopt a Trail program as people are coming through.
Yeah.
And which trails are available.
And were you gonna try to resurrect the survey 1, 2, 3? Have folks, 'cause
I think
could never
so.
figure it out.
If I think I probably want to make sure that it was useful,
Okay.
and that people can actually use it, and it comes in a format that we can use to do that.
The other thing too was that I know that the requirements were for 4 times a year. And I know just as doing it over the
So I've
last few
deleted that.
years.
I've
Oh, you
deleted
did?
that.
Okay.
I've
'Cause I think
basically
too-
given them, I've given them like suggestions. We suggest you go out at these times.
Okay.
I know that when the scouts responded to me, they said they just go twice a year.
Twice. Yeah, I think that's plenty.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because I did, it was little, 4 times a year. Oh my God. It was just like,
Right.
it was, not that it was huge commitment, but.
Yeah, and some people might want to do, an hour here and there, and they might go, 15 times a year, but only for an hour on their hike.
And I think Anne walks, she said she walks the trails quite a bit, so.
Yeah, she does. She looks after them pretty well. But I think if more people do the low level stuff,
Right.
then she's got a bit more time to do more intensive stuff.
Right, yeah, she could just let the adopt a trail folks know, hey, there's a tree down or something like that.
Yeah, and also, there's low level sort of carpentry, like replacing, the odd puncheon here and there. You can't,
Right.
It's difficult to haul out, a 10-foot section of lumber by yourself. But if you've got 3 or 4 people who are volunteers, you can do that.
All right, so next up, we have aquatic invasives funding, Bill H51.
So this was for your information thing from the Federation of Vermont Lakes and Ponds. So there's all the information they supplied is on the website there. And I think what I understand is there's a potential House bill that wants to establish a fee for boat owners to use Vermont lakes and ponds, and then those fees would be used to control aquatic nuisances, sort of by establishing a fund. That would help control the spread of aquatic invasives. So it was a little unclear what they were asking me to do, but I think they just want you to, if you're interested in this, to lobby your local representative and to get hearings on the bill. Try and move it forward.
Speaking of aquatic invasives, the wake boating issue was on
Yes.
NPR, on VPR last night. Sorry, Vermont Public.
Yeah.
VP. And they had, it sounded as though, just because I know that we discussed this issue and put some support behind it, it sounded as though the draft proposal does do some significant limiting of moving boats between lakes, which was an important aspect in terms of the aquatic invasives. But it doesn't go as far as the petition we addressed wanted it to go in terms of distances from shore and things like that. So right now it's working its way.
Yeah, my take on that, I heard that as well, was, I'm not even sure, we have 800 and something lakes and ponds in the state, and there are 33, I think, qualified that meet the minimum regulations for size, and one of them is it has to be 20 feet deep, or 20 feet or more deep, which I would think Lake Iroquois wouldn't even be one of those 33 based on that.
I don't know what the depth is. Yeah, it has to
It's
have
pretty
a
shallow.
50 acres or something at 20 feet deep.
Yeah,
Which definitely it doesn't.
yeah. So reference to at least our town, that would be the only potential lake that would be impacted. And it sounds like there'd be no
ruled out.
wakeboarding allowed in Iroquois.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware that is progressing in some fashion.
It's controversial, but
It is controversial, yeah.
They had a meeting in Greensboro a couple of months ago, and I couldn't believe where people were coming from.
Yeah.
And they drove there, and it was pretty bad weather that night, but there were a lot of people that wanted to speak about it.
All right, thanks, Simon. Anything else on invasive on the aquatic invasives funding?
No, unless you've got something you want to say, Eric. I know this. You're interested
Near and
in
dear.
waterways of all kinds.
I was surprised, Eric, by the chart of just how many bodies of water have, especially the Eurasian milfoil, but even some other species. I didn't realize how many were infested.
Yeah, and we're actually kind of lucky as this, so I'm looking at that chart. This is, yeah, so Eurasian water milfoil has been here for a long time and it spreads really easily, which is why that's the most abundant invasive species in lakes and ponds in Vermont. And it's one of those things where it's once you have a new invasive species in your lake, it's really hard to get rid of it, like basically impossible. And so the more that you can do to prevent it from, it's a lot more than just an ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. It's you know, you really can't cure it once you get it. So it's the effort to it's worth putting the effort into prevention for when it comes to any invasive species, aquatic or terrestrial. As far as the funding goes, part of the reason there's been a reduction in funding is that my understanding is that the funding source that the state was using, I think it was through the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard was determined that this was not an eligible use of those funds or something like that. So that's why the state's has fewer dollars available, which is then reflected back onto other organizations that fund this work, like the Basin Program, like Champlain Basin Program, for example. Our requests to support invasive species work this year almost tripled, which was which was not what I was counting on when I budgeted for this work last year. So we weren't able to support as nearly as many projects as we would have as there was a need. So it's kind of I'm glad to see a bill like this moving forward, and I hope that the state can find a solution to
Funding source at least.
address this problem. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Last thing on your list, Simon, was the Deborah Burke donation.
This was just Deborah just made a small donation to the town's conservation fund in memory of one of her friend's sons who was unfortunately murdered. It was down in Tennessee, but her friend was went to school here, so she just gave a small donation. His name, wanted to make sure it was used for conservation purposes. So I'll see. I put it in the. I've stashed it in the capital budget, and we'll see if there's a small project that comes up. Maybe something that we can look at. One of the trails, maybe something Anne's doing where we'll make like a meaningful difference to purchasing supplies for that. I said I'd also just write a note to the parents, thank them for it as well.
That sounds good. Thanks, Simon.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
No. I think Eric and Terry and I went to that Association of Vermont.
Oh yeah.
Conservation Commission meeting organised by Jens at the state, probably about 3 weeks ago now. It's pretty well attended, actually. There's a lot of people there talking about all the various initiatives that different towns were doing. I think 50% of the towns in Vermont seem to be doing a project with Ethan Tapper. He's everywhere.
There's actually 5 of him. They just all look the same.
He's cloned.
Yeah. That's our county forester. He's everywhere.
Yeah, we've done work with him for some
One
my
of him.
classes.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them.
He's the 6th.
Yeah.
So that was fascinating to see all the different work everyone's doing across Chittenden County. Probably one of the best pieces of news from that is that I must actually look at whether it passed, but St. George had a vote on whether to establish a conservation commission. So presumably they've had that vote now.
Oh, was that, did you say St. George?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which they don't have at the moment, which would be a great thing for them. And it's it's another town on our boundary that has one.
What staff member do they have? They don't have a conservation planner, right? So they would have a.
I think the person who would chair it is a chap called Abel Russ, who's also chair of the DRB and on the planning commission. So I don't know if you give up one of those posts to chair the conservation commission. Obviously, it's good for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget why this, something came up in the last week, might have been at Sustainable Williston has a social, the second Thursday of each month, and it might have come up there. Something about people in, there's somebody who joined who's from St. George and was saying, well, I'm technically not a Williston resident, but I kind of would like to do some stuff with the group because St. George is, my kids go to school in Williston and whatever.
Yeah.
It was a reminder that they don't have all of the town programs and staffing that Williston does. So that'd be cool if they got a commission that we could coordinate with.
Yeah. That was everything I had on the business.
Thanks. Yeah, that was, I also attended that meeting and it was interesting. It was nice to hear about all these other, some of the things that all these other towns are working on. Okay, how are we looking for our next meeting in terms of folks being able to attend? Our next meeting is April 5th, is that right?
So I will not be here.
I'm available.
I'll be here.
I'm available. Yeah, I'll be here.
Great. I should be here as well, so we should be good. Okay.
One quick note, Richmond Conservation Commission is having that meeting on tonight, yep, on recreation, trail-based recreation. And I don't know if anyone is able to go. I'm like hoping to make it. But it looks super relevant to us.
Yeah, there is a Zoom link also.
Zoom link, yeah.
If somebody does go, I would love to hear a recap. I'm not able to go tonight or listen in tonight.
Maybe they'll record it.
They are recording it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, yeah. So
It's also, the folks that are on the panel are folks that we have heard from before, like Andrea Shortsleeve has spoken to our group and, but I just think Richmond is an interesting, because of like some of the conversations around Andrew's community forest and, like there's been a lot of debate about what type of trail-based recreation is appropriate. I think it's an interesting town to look at that conversation in.
And this is on the wildlife and recreation and mountain bikes and things like that. Is that the topic? Yeah.
Conservation.
I don't know if it's specific to mountain biking. I think reading between the lines, I think that was the impetus for it.
Right.
Yeah.
But the topic appears to be proposed as broader than that.
Yeah.
Eric, before we adjourn, I just want to ask if there's anything that our guests from CVU.
Oh, yeah, please go ahead.
questions?
I need to head out to try and get up to my office, but yeah,
Okay.
please go ahead. Thanks,
Oh, you
everyone.
are gonna go. Good luck.
Yep.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Is there anything from, I assume you were attending mostly just to observe and see what our meetings are like and what we're talking about, but is there anything that came up that you were interested in hearing more about or questions you had?
Yeah, back to the Pine Ridge in the beginning. I used to live in Sunrise Drive, the neighborhood like right over there by Nets. Is there still gonna be access to like the trails where my mom would like go in our backyard and go down the hill to the trail? And we'd have like pictures of us by the cabin as kids. Is there still access from that neighborhood over there?
So our town-owned land is open for public primitive recreation, or not primitive, what's it called? It's called passive recreation.
Yeah.
So you can walk, you can snowshoe. In the winter, you could cross-country ski across, I'm sure. So there's nothing wrong with people doing that, just there's no access point for the property right now. There's no like parking area or a sign that says here, the trail begins here. So it's not set up to encourage recreation. We don't have a maintained trail system and stuff, but yeah, I know that people are going back in there
It's a nice
It's just
spot.
informal.
Yeah.
Your neighbors
It's
could have
families,
take
it's,
berries, go
yeah,
walk around their dogs.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Could you
there would
just-
just be more traffic if we established some sort of official thing out there,
Mhm.
then people would start coming because they'll be listening to the website and word of mouth and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Did you ever stay at the cabin overnight?
I think my mom might have let me put up a tent there once, but I don't remember. I had been in there once, but this wasn't locked, and I was going into.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Okay, great. Is that everything then? Does anyone have anything else? No?
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
We didn't do any development review today, which is one of the things we often do, but you got to see other stuff.
Is that the season now? Is that coming up? Like, will we start to see a lot of like, discretionary permit things, or is the growth management?
I feel like pre-apps happen all the time, and then the discretionary permits are clustered a little bit more. Is that how you see it?
So once they get their growth management allocation, they can then submit their discretionary permit.
Hmm.
So they're probably working on them at the moment, but they can't submit them until April at the earliest, but they probably need a month or two just to finalize everything.
Mhm.
And this is like 5 or 6 years out, right? Because all the allocations have been promised.
It depends on which area they're in.
Yeah, oh, that's
So
true.
all the guys in the kind of rural area will probably just be able to go because there's not much competition.
Yeah.
Whereas the residential zoning district is more congested.
Mhm.
Right.